Hey everybody, Kat here. Welcome to my channel. Hope you're having a great day. It's Saturday morning, and today I just thought we would address some cold, hard facts. I mean, right now it's such a mishmash of information coming out that you want to say, I don't know what's true. You've got everything from good grief military conflicts around the world right down to Harry and Meghan and what's going on with them and the conflicting stories and what mainstream is saying, what independent journalists and investigators are saying, who's funding who and what's the motives. You could say that about any of these current events. What's the motivation? Who's funding who? What's the end game? What's really going on? And we have those questions about big world events, right down to the royal family. What's really going on with Catherine? What's really going on with Meghan and Harry, and who's funding them? And we've got lawsuits upon lawsuits, and it gets hard sometimes to try to go, what's the point in all of this? Well, there's some big truths that we have to face. And first thing you got to do with any institution, whether it's your government, whether it's the royal family, whether it's the World Economic Forum or the Council on Foreign Relations or the World Bank, all these non-governmental organizations are driving policy to politicians to kind of force a world view and move things in the direction that they want for their purposes. That's the bottom line. You can't get away with it. There's nothing benevolent about these organizations. They don't have your best interest at heart. We know, even as much as it's, been disputed, we know that there is a direct relationship between governments and their media. We see this constantly with, for example, the UK and the BBC, the state broadcaster there. We see that here in Canada between the Trudeau government and our CBC, Canada Broadcasting Corporation. Trudeau has in the past bragged that indeed the CBC will promote his government, and he said, because I paid them billions a year to do so. It's no secret. And now another thing, we know that the palace has a special working relationship with their government as well as their press. As much as these lines have been tried to be blurred, people saying, when Harry came out and said, Camilla was talking to the press at the time of his mother, the Diana years, those conflicts. And we know Diana was talking to the press. Richard Kay was a very good friend of hers, and she would feed him stories. And, since we've heard things since then, at the time, the palace and other people, royal reporters, there's absolutely no relationship between the palace and the press, and this never happened, and what Harry's a liar. There was never any leaks or briefings or special relationships, which is just not true. That's one time Harry was actually telling the truth. He didn't understand the scope of the relationship and how things work. But he wasn't wrong that the palace and principal members of the monarchy have close relationships with journalists and get the word out. I mean, it's up. We know this now. So as with, we also notice, and it's highlighted all the time, mostly by the mainstream press, we understand the difference between the mainstream media and independent journalists, YouTubers, bloggers, independent investigators that don't follow the mainstream narrative of events, but look deeper into things. And it's not what they tell us. You know, they tell us what they want us to hear. The press does that. The media does that. The government does that. The palace does that. You hear and see what they want you to hear and see. It's theater. It really is, notwithstanding all the pomp and ceremony around the royal family, but that's another thing. But just everyday life, what they want you to see, what they want you to hear is what you get. And a lot of us have an uneasy feeling like this is just, something's wrong with this story. So we got to look deeper into things. And that's where some people will say, oh, it's a conspiracy theory, you're a nutter, it's, but it's not most of the time. Conspiracy theories turn out to be what's really going on. Where conspiracy theory, the term was first used, it was during the hearings surrounding President Kennedy's death. They didn't want any story out there to be, other than the basic Oswald magic bullet, one bullet, book to book, that story. That was the mainstream narrative that they chose to promote. So anything that strayed from that was considered a conspiracy theory. This is how they denigrated people that were going, that's not what happened. And there's been, hundreds of books and everything. And we may not know exactly what happened, but we know it's not the way the mainstream narrative has described things. You could say the same thing about the death of Princess Diana. Something about the mainstream narrative, something about the events that occurred at the time, something about the various independent investigations. The story we're being fed and being, proffered that we should believe, I don't think is at the very least, not the whole truth. Let's put it that way. I think there's a lot more going on. Thanks to the royal grift, we are in the process of uncovering another story and learning more regarding Harry and his visa, his status in the United States, and who might be funding him, and what he's really up to with the Aspen Institute and these lawsuits, and just undermining. He's like an evil agent. And without this kind of work that they're doing over at the grift, we wouldn't know about it. And this is not what mainstream wants you to hear. For example, right now, they had the first hearing, I guess, for the case between Homeland Security and the Heritage Foundation. And that all started because the Heritage Foundation is I guess you could describe a right-wing group in America that is challenging Homeland Security for information. It all started with a FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act request regarding Harry's visa. You know, why is he here? How did he get here? Is it a special visa? Is he like designated with special status? What about the drug use? These kind of questions that the Heritage Foundation is trying to get to the bottom of. And the U.S. government and Homeland Security have been really putting them off for a long time regarding information surrounding Harry's visa. They don't want to release that information, you know, because we might find out, did Harry tell the truth and they gave him special dispensation? Did Harry lie and they're covering it up on his visa application? We don't know. Was there even a visa application? Is he here for some other kind of, you know, a royal, you can do whatever you want. Who knows what it is? And they're trying to get to the bottom of this. And so they had this hearing, and it was really interesting. Seems that Homeland Security's biggest argument that, you know, their biggest defense, basically, is that, you know, Harry's book, Spare, where he outlined all kinds of drug use, from teenage years right up to the present time in California. He documented all kinds of drug use, and even, you know, said that some drugs really helped him more than others. So he's promoting it, you could say. Well, what Homeland Security is coming out and saying, well, you know, Harry exaggerated in the book to sell books. You can't take this seriously. You can't take this as an account of his real drug history. He's exaggerating for sales. But then, like the Grift pointed out, there's interviews, the interview with Stephen Colbert, where Harry says, oh, everything in the book, it was cathartic writing it, everything is true, it's my truth, my story, might upset people, but it's true. So he is verifying that the accounts of the drug use in his book are in fact true. From the author's mouth, from the visa holder's mouth. This is the truth. This is my truth. This is the truth. So then why is he being protected? Well, we know he's doing work with the Aspen Institute. We know his lawsuits, like the one with Elton John and the others, Hugh Grant and others, those privacy things, that's all about squelching free speech. We know that Harry has called certain American laws and amendments, you know, wacky, crazy. That first, you know, free speech stuff, that's a nutty concept. And who is he? Not an American citizen, but yet a royal prince, to come out and criticize the American government. And then now it seems indeed he's working against the American government with the kind of work that he is doing. He is working against people with his travelist bullshit and, oh, we got to save the earth and carbon and, you know, footprint, and you shouldn't travel, and you got to do this and that, but he hops a private jet every time he gets a chance because he's that entitled. You know, you find that with the current governments and the lefty liberals anyway, and the vegans and the let's save the world, just stop oil, all of those kind of, the hypocrisy is loud. It's ridiculous. But this is the trend that governments are doing because, of course, this is what the World Economic Forum wants them to do and is feeding it down. This is the direction things are going. And Harry is just, a little malevolent agent for change, that he's got a big name, he'll do anything for money, and he'll do anything if it still makes him feel important. And the fact that he's been brought up the way he has, the fact that just because of the accident of his birth, he should be an important enough person that we should listen to what he has to say. So he feels completely justified in what he's doing. And all the elites are like this. But, look at Harry's upbringing. The way that he was coddled by the palace, the way that his life was managed by the palace, the way his personality was proffered to the public by the palace. They created a persona for him. He's not really a war hero. He had more Gurkha guards guarding him personally in Afghanistan than there were guys in his platoon, and he was actually a hindrance to them. Not a war hero. He's not a pilot. He's not an advocate for veterans. The Invictus Games was thought up by the palace and funded by the Royal Foundation to give Harry something to do. It was based on the Warrior Games in the United States. This was developed, put together, and funded by the palace and presented to Harry and say, look, you can be the boss of this. We'll make you president of this charity. Harry had nothing to do with it. They put it together and handed it to him and said, this is what you're going to do next. To keep him out of trouble, keep him focused, give him something to focus on. That's all it is. The Invictus Games was nothing more than a grown-up coloring book for a distracted kid. That's it. I mean, the fact that it grew into something big with the help of the Royal Foundation's funding, the help of public funding, it has grown, it has engaged a lot of people, and for years, it looked like, this is a good thing, this is a positive thing, at least here's something Harry's doing that is making a difference with the people. Till Meghan came along, and now the Invictus Games has basically just become a slush fund for her visibility. Let's put it that way. She's taken control of the whole damn thing, and it's upset everybody from the veterans on up. So everything isn't as it seems. And we say, why are Harry and Meghan getting away with this? Why is, who's funding them? Lots of people are funding them. Oprah may not be funding them anymore. But they've got governments and government departments and NGO'S and the Aspen Institute and the palace itself. The British government, the American government, they're getting funding from all over simply because of who Harry is. Meghan, she may not love him. She may, despise the royal family. She thinks she's better than everybody. But she can't get rid of him yet, because this is the only thing holding all the money together, holding any clout they have, is their association with the royal family. In recent interviews, Harry was asked about, had he ever considered American citizenship? And, he said, I've considered it. Well, the hoo-ha in the press, in the British press, like, this is terrible, renounce, he's considering doing this and that, and that's really not what he said. I think it was a throwaway comment. I think Harry's very well aware of the fact that were he to renounce his British citizenship to become an American, he would have to as well renounce all of his titles. And that is something that he and Meghan would be loath to do. She's even gone to the trouble of somehow, probably illegally, but I don't know the ins and outs, changing the supposed children's birth certificates to reflect the Sussex as their surname. And it's not. Sussex is a title. Their proper surname, as written in letters patent done by the Queen in the 1970s, heretofore all other children, grandchildren of the monarch, would be known as Mountbatten Windsor. That's their true surname. But I think Meghan's done it as kind of a desperate stopgap measure, so she can say, well, you can't take the titles away because my kids are named Sussex. You're going to change their names? One of those kind of things, right? And we can ask ourselves why the hell, they're even tolerating Meghan anymore. Because on one hand, it doesn't really matter what she does. She really won't have much impact on the royal family other than just bad-mouthing them. But what can she really do in the long run? In a way, I think up till now, that has been a little underestimated, because we've seen what kind of damage they can do. And I think that William is onto it. I think he always has been, as was the Prince Philip and Princess Anne. They were on to Meghan from the start. And things are interesting. And here we go again. What's really going on? We don't know. The king is sidelined right now with a cancer diagnosis and treatment. What cancer? We don't know. What treatment? We don't know. Is this really what's going on? We don't really, we don't really know, do we? That's what we're being told. But with everything else we've learned, we have reason enough to kind of say, maybe that's not even true, and there's something else really going on. And we wouldn't be crazy to think that. Look at Catherine. Abdominal surgery, 2 weeks in the hospital, out of commission for 3 months after that. We might see her end of April. 2 more months. We don't know what's going on with that. We don't know. William has had to pick up the slack. He's been doing a lot of things behind the scenes to pick up for Charles' absenteeism during the course of his issues these days. How much is William actually doing? There are some that say that he's already de facto regent to the king. There are some that are saying, he's stepping up in light of everything that's going on and helping out the king, which is his role as the Prince of Wales. The truth may lie somewhere in between. I think, and I've always thought, that there is more to what's going on than we're being shown, of course. And I think William, whether given the role or taking the role, is, I think he's done. I think what's going on behind the scenes has more of William's hand in it than, in fact, the king's. And I've always said, you go back and look at my videos, I've always said that I think there's going to come a point where Charles is going to have to step down. I think it's going to be now within the next year. Whether it's due to health, whether it's due to public opinion, whether it's due to conflict with the government and the palace, perhaps, say, over Harry's status and the titles and all of that. We do know that there is movement in the legislature, a bill that has a private member's bill that's waiting on its second reading to strip Harry of the titles, right? Now, and then you get the people that say, Charles can't, his hands are tied, Charles can't do anything. It has to come from the government. And even with that, it would be difficult. There are others that say, oh, Charles wouldn't do anything because, after all, Harry's still his son and he wouldn't put him through the humiliation of that. And all these reasons why we see the inaction on the part of the king as far as censoring or disciplining the Sussexes over their behavior. When in fact, the king, they say, oh, soft power, he doesn't really have any influence. He can't do anything, without the government say so. Not true. The king can do whatever he wants. And people say, oh, it requires a letters patent. Like that's a big deal. Letters patent is nothing more than an internal office memo. I'm doing this. That's it. That's all it is. They make a big hullabaloo and pomp and circumstances about what can and can't be done. The bottom line, the cold hard fact, is the king can decide anything he wants. The monarch's prerogative is anything the monarch wants. They can change your mind whenever they want. The government doesn't decide whether the king pays taxes or how much. Charles, it's voluntary. I'll pay, some taxes here and there, but not here. And business law doesn't apply to the monarch, and the Duke of Cornwall, the Prince of Wales, the Duchy of Cornwall, and all the commerce, and that's $1 billion business. William isn't dictated to by the government how to run it. He'll bend a law in his favor. He'll exclude laws. He'll pay tax. He'll exclude tax. He'll do whatever he wants. They have more power than we know. And that is why it is worth keeping a darn good eye on what's going on, because we're only being shown what they want us to see, and there's more behind the curtain, and that's what we're all here to find out. I'd love to know your thoughts on everything. Please leave me a comment, like, subscribe. We'll see you in the next one. Take care, everybody.